Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and we've got some updates we want to talk about for both the head coach search and also the GM search. So there is some confirmation on that as far as what the Jaguars are going to try to do. So I want to make sure I discuss this. This is really big news. It for some reason doesn't feel that way, and I think it's because yesterday was like the craziest day ever. You had snow in Jacksonville. You had let's see, Liam Cohen turning down the job, and you had Trent Baalke actually getting fired. Like hell literally froze over for this. So with all those things happening, actual news just doesn't seem like it even matters at this point. It's like irrelevant almost in the shadow of those things. But we do need to talk about it. So I've just got two things we're going to discuss, and then if any of you guys want to watch later, I will probably be putting out a video just going over Trent Baalke and kind of how we got here and just kind of a final send off. Not a glorious one at all. Just yeah, we're gonna have one last video on that, and then we're gonna forget he exists. I'm hoping. So, getting into this, first thing that was reported today, this was from Jonathan Jones, was that the Jaguars are going to continue their search to land a head coach and then begin a search for a GM. And this is sources telling NFL on CBS, so this is legitimate. And they say it's a unique way to go about things, but that appears to be the path forward for the Jaguars. I don't know if it's really super unique, honestly. I think the idea is simply you bring in a head coach that you believe in. You've already started that search. And then once you get the head coach, you're going to work with them to bring in a candidate that's going to be good for GM. There's nothing crazy about that. Like, in theory, I mean, we could look at the Titans this offseason. They did the last part, right? They had a head coach already. They got the GM after. I know there's some people that are saying this is like a terrible process. Honestly, I don't see anything wrong with this. The only way I see something wrong with it is if they force a GM in that doesn't align with the head coach. Because I think going forward, it's very simple. You need to get people in this organization, in the front office and the coaching staff who are all aligned, who are all in it together, all bound at the hip, and have to succeed together. They have to help each other. They can't be fighting in the building over who's at fault for what and who we're going to fire to save my ass. That can't happen. That's got to stop. This has been going on for freaking 5 years in Jacksonville. It's got to end. So I don't see a problem with this. I'm actually very happy about it. And the other side of this, of course, we did talk about this last night, was you got a little scared that Ethan Waugh might just be given the job, right? And you go back down the same road of why Trent Baalke was here. He never earned the job. He was just given it because he was behind the guy who failed, and they felt like, we don't want to do the work. Let's promote it. It's ridiculous. And who knows? Like, technically, could Ethan Waugh interview and win the job? Yeah, I just kind of highly doubt that happens because it's not just Shad Khan making this decision. I think the head coach is going to be involved. You're probably going to have other people, hopefully, who are a part of that process. So this is the first big thing. And then the other thing worth noting, just to kind of confirm this, the interview process right now with head coaches is not down to two candidates. This is not a Robert Saleh or Patrick Graham sort of thing. A lot of the buzz right now that I've heard, and this isn't from like sources I know or anything like that, but just following Twitter and trying to find people who are legitimate, and then some that are a little questionable, right? But generally, what we have heard, and actually Mia O'Brien backed this up on the Duval Rundown, was that the Jaguars want a young offensive mind a head coach. That is their goal. Part of the reason why they haven't interviewed Todd Monken, in fact, they had mentioned, because he is older than Doug Peterson. I would still bring him in, personally. If a head coach is good, even if he's a little bit older, like, I could live with that. But, I digress. Like, that's their choice. But what it looks like right now is going on is that they are trying to work something out with Liam Cohen. I don't know where that is. I don't know if that's going to be successful. We just know they're trying, or they have tried at this point. It could be just done at this point to where they missed out on it. He could also be working on a deal with the Jaguars. We don't know. But they're trying to go back after Cohen. And it sounds like if it's not him, you see the two names here. Joe Brady, Kellen Moore. Young offensive minds. And the one that's got a ton of hype behind him right now for this job is Joe Brady. So I would say right now, if I had to guess what happens, I think Joe Brady's probably the head coach. And don't take that as if that's going to happen. Like, I think the odds for most of these candidates are very low. We just don't know at this point. It's a crazy search. A lot of things have happened. Can't even interview the guy again right now because the Bills are in the playoffs. So can't do much about it. But this is kind of where they sit. And I think you're going to see a young offensive mind come in, which is good. I do like that. I think that's the kind of people you want to take a shot on if you're looking for a head coach. And can there be exclusions to that? Can there be someone who's an outlier that's a good candidate? Yes, that's fine. But I think generally this has the most upside. And if you get it right, you're going to have a guy who's really good for a very long time. You're not going to be worrying about changing the offensive scheme and such all the time. I think it's easier to bring in good defensive coordinators than good offensive coordinators. It's just my personal thought. Could be wrong on that. But this is where we stand. I will personally say I have a lot more confidence in what they're doing now. Of course, there's been a price that's been paid, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that's not the case. The Jaguars have lost out on two top candidates. Maybe they get the one in Liam Cohen. We'll see. But that's where they sit. And one thing I do want to actually correct really quick before we get off here. I did see Dilla had mentioned today that the Jaguars, if they had moved on from Trent Baalke, he said that it was a fact that they would have landed Ben Johnson. That was the hiccup. And it sounds like he would have preferred Jacksonville over Chicago. Take that as you want. There have been conflicting things said. And Ben has fought back against that idea. And just what he said in interviews with Chicago, saying that he was always seeing them as the top option. Always where he wanted to be. All that stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that, honestly. I think the guy has said a lot of things since he got there that are just trying to hype up the fan base. Everything is like, we need to build as much hype as possible. That's been the approach so far. So, I don't think it's super credible what he was saying, as in what Ben Johnson did in his interviews. And I think there's a legit shot that Jacksonville was the top option. And regardless of this, the unfortunate thing is we knew at the end of the day, the Jaguars were going to choose Trent Baalke over Ben Johnson, which is disgusting, but it is the truth. And thankfully, the price they paid was too much to be able to keep Trent Baalke, and now you hope you can pivot. I have my dream scenarios I want to happen. Maybe they can get Liam Cohen back in here, sign him. Maybe you get a Ray Agnew from the Lions. There was mention that both those guys had been with the Rams in the late 2010s. They would be familiar with each other. And there might be other candidates too. Brandon Brown's a candidate, for example, I saw was mentioned that I would love. Like, you want to go listen to stuff from him, go watch Hard Knocks from last offseason. Like, there's a lot of guys out here. But we'll see what happens. A lot of things are on the table. I'm sure we'll learn something soon, but this is what we know so far. So with that said, I want to thank our channel members real quick. Premier Seer 904, Mr. Dolphin, Scrubber Ducky 500, and Brian Foster. Thank you all for supporting the channel. Appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And finally, go Jags.